Blog Talk Radio.
It's time for another ASWIFTT radio broadcast with Brenda Diann Johnson. Sit back and relax with ASWIFTT Radio.
Good afternoon and welcome to today's show, Checkmate Moves for Business Startups. This is Brenda Diann Johnson, your host on ASWIFTT Radio. Today I'm also joined by Wendy Oliveras, who is a native of New York, New York. She holds a Master's of Science degree with honors in Human Resources Management and a Postmaster's certification in Career Development and Planning for the New School in New York City. Wendy created and teaches a mentoring class for women and young girls that empowers them through her principles of chess. She is the author of Let's Play Chess, Succeed in Your Game of Life or Business by Playing Chess from Pawn to Queen, and Checkmate Moves for Business Startups, which empowers and encourages women to start their own businesses. Wendy, welcome to ASWIFTT Radio.
Yes, thank you, Brenda. I'm honored to be on your show.
Okay, thank you. And today on our show, we will discuss the empowerment of women and young girls. We will also encourage women and young girls to play chess and start their own businesses. My first question in this discussion is, why is it important to empower women and young girls? And what is SHESS Ideology? Wendy, what is your perspective on this question?
It's important to empower and motivate young girls in our communities and our families, as well as women in general, especially women who strive to start businesses, because the more we succeed, the more we can mentor others. We can share our moments of triumph and victories and challenges as well, and mistakes that we've made along the way, so that others can, learn from our mistakes as well. Now, my Master Chess Ideology, which is part 2 of my book, it's designed to empower every woman to adopt a fearless, resilient, and powerful mindset. And it's a roadmap, actually, to help them to gain emotional intelligence while building their self-confidence in all that they do. And so basically, at the end of the SHESS Ideology, which consists of 5 components, empowerment components or categories, once they've accomplished their goals, it's at that point that they need to share, help others, respect others, and mentor others for their successes. For too long, Brenda, women have elbowed each other in business and even socially and personally, privately in their lives. And it's time that we have to change that dynamic and begin to, and not only empower ourselves, but start empowering others and believing in them as well. So we embrace each other versus elbowing each other. I think that's very important.
Okay, thank you, Wendy, for that response. Now, my answer to that question is that God created everyone with a purpose, including women. Women have always had a purpose. They are the carriers of life, and they give birth to generations. Women are also creative and innovative. They are intelligent, smart, and problem solvers. They bring balance to the table. It is important that women and young girls know this truth, so they can be confident and proud of themselves when they go after their dreams and goals. Now, the long journey of women's rights began with the women's rights movement led by Elizabeth Cady Stanton and Susan B. Anthony from 1848 to 1917. As a result of this movement, women earned the right to vote, when the 19th Amendment was passed by Congress on June 4, 1919, and ratified on August 18, 1920. The 19th Amendment guarantees all American women the right to vote. However, sexism continues to plague our educational institutions and our places of employment. In the past, women were commonly viewed as being mentally and morally inferior to men, regulated to learning only domestic skills. Not until the 1970s and 80s did they win the right to be admitted to previously all-male Ivy League colleges and universities, and not until the 1990s did they breach the walls of the Citadel and the Virginia Military Institute. That information was taken from page 107 in Multicultural Education, Issues and Perspectives by Banks and Banks, 2013. Also, according to Wikipedia.com, women's rights issues include the right to bodily integrity and autonomy, to be free from sexual violence, to vote, to hold public office, to enter into legal contracts, to have equal rights in family law, to work, to fair wages or equal pay, to have reproductive rights, to own property, and to education. My next question is, why is it difficult for women to believe in themselves? What are some things that hinder women from progressing in life? Wendy, can you answer that question?
Yeah. Wow, that's a very interesting question. Thank you for that. I think, in general, confidence-building tools are needed because women tend to be too sensitive, and they carry heavy emotional baggage, such as not letting go of past mistakes and heartbreaks and fears and guilt and even low self-esteem. Oftentimes we're socialized, even as children, to be quiet and not be too aggressive. Don't be too loud. And so we grow up with that mindset thinking, well, I'm afraid to negotiate a higher salary with my employer because if I do, I may be viewed as being too aggressive, and that might cause me to get fired or, not be liked anymore, or whatever that may be. As women, we're sensitive creatures. We're nurturers by nature. And I get all of the wonderful laws that have been passed on our behalf. But the bottom line is it still boils down to how you think, plan, and react as a woman, regardless of your past, regardless of your mistakes, regardless of anything that has happened to you. Everything begins with your first thought when you wake up in the morning and when you go to bed at night. So if you wake up in the morning feeling negative and saying, oh, my God, I hate my life, or it's raining outside, it's an ugly day, yeah, you're setting yourself up for a negative momentum throughout the day. In business, whether you are starting one or you're looking to grow one, your mindset is the most important facet, because the way you think is what's most important. And that's why I've been advocating for 9 years passionately that women should learn to play chess for fun. I'm not saying to become a grandmaster, and if you can achieve that goal, wonderful. God bless you. However, playing chess for fun helps you to build your critical thinking skills, your logical thinking. It helps you to solve problems better. There's a lot of analogies inherent in chess, life, and business that are critical that we're not aware of. We don't realize that. And as women, we tend to shy away from playing chess, I believe anyway, because we've been socialized to believe it's too intellectual for us. And I'm an avid chess player, and I can assure you that if you learn the basics, you'll get the idea of how important it is to plan strategies and tactics on that game board. And those skill sets can be easily transferred into your real-life activities, making decisions, anticipating what can happen next, more particularly in your marketplace. If you don't observe, for example, your competitors, you lose. You lose out on something important. if you don't tap into what your customers' needs are, then you're going to lose. You won't grow. There's no sustainability. There's no growth for that. So yeah, that was a very good question. Thank you for that. Very good question.
Okay, thank you, Wendy, for that response. I just want to also reiterate, Wendy, I just want to reiterate that that women in society have been taught to be quiet and to be silent, to be nice, to act like a lady, to put men first, to be a helpmate for a man, to serve men, and their job is only to be a wife and have children. The Bible is often used negatively or in error to keep women in their place. This is why some women are docile, speak up, and they only pray about things. They don't take action. The teaching that makes women docile affects their personal and their business decisions. They have been indoctrinated to accept that women can only do some things and other things are reserved for men only. Some women are gripped by fear. When they try to move forward, they become perplexed or uncertain about what God is telling them to do and what society has taught them to do. They ignore their gut instinct. They don't want to rock the boat or cause any waves. Unfortunately, some women are still dealing with inner and outer struggles that are strongholds. They can't embrace any ideology like SHESS that helps them progress until they deal with the inner and the outer struggles that hold them back. Now, Wendy, in your book, Checkmate Moves for Business Startups, you talk about external obstacles and internal resistors. Can you tell us the reason you included this in your book and give us an example, one example of each?
Well, for example, identifying, in part 3 of the book, I focus on identifying and observing opponents in life and in business. You know, we have the ability to listen and trust our gut instincts, right? And that's a great skill to have, but it's a personal skill most women, they just don't develop, either because they live in fear, they ignore their own feelings, or they stay complacent and in a constant denial mode. An external obstacle is considered opponents in life and business which relate to a person, place, or thing. And that could be a spouse, a romantic partner, a family, a friend, a neighbor, a stranger, but it can also be a competitor in your marketplace. It could be a business partner, a colleague, a coworker, and it can even extend into a lack of capital or funding. These external obstacles are important for us to be vigilant about or to identify, because if we don't analyze what's blocking us, because these external obstacles, there's something occurring in each one of these that is preventing us from progressing or accomplishing a goal that we have set for ourselves. And it's our responsibility to identify what that is and be honest about it. Be clear about that boundary and that limitation. Now, with regard to internal obstacles, that's another, an internal resistor. That is something that is that stems from very deep within you on a very personal, deep level. And internal resistors are those elements which directly pertain to how you generally perceive and react to things. And this is something that women struggle with. You know, they may say that they are aware of something, but in reality, they're in denial in some form or another. Not all the time, but it depends on the circumstance. There's negative thinking. There's negative self-talk. That's self-imposed fear. And they procrastinate. There's low self-esteem. There's self-doubt. All of these internal resistors are very harmful to you because you're in a constant, I can never be something more than what I am today. You've already shut the door to an opportunity by thinking that way. There's, there's another internal resistor which I find very important as well on the other side of the spectrum, which is you may have too much confidence and arrogance. And that can also, that kind of mindset can also sabotage your successes as well. Because when you're too confident, overly confident and arrogant, you're going to stifle your own growth at some point, because people will stop being loyal to you. People are not going to trust you. They're going to find you to just be a real, pain in the, a real pain. And that's a challenge for yourself. So versus being humble and, a good leader has humility, has compassion for others. And those are key things. But anyhow, the internal resistors are key. I think they're the most powerful opponents within ourselves versus the external obstacles, because external, it could be a person, place, or thing, right? Internal resistors is basically, how do I feel about myself? What do I want to change? Do I need improvement on something? And if you're not honest with yourself, no one will be. Everything stems from within you. So getting back to that, the subject of why women, yes, we're extremely capable, and yes, we're able to accomplish amazing triumphs in our lives. But we don't see that. We don't have an end game visionary strategy in place. We don't see the future. All we see is just right now. And that's part of setting and accomplishing goals, is having an end game strategy. I have a goal to start a business. Well, I have a secret dream to start a business, for example, and my end game vision is, wow, I'm owning a commercial building, and I have a great office. I have a great booming business, and I'm just loved by my community. I'm giving back, and that's an end game strategy, a visionary strategy to focus on. Versus, I want to start a business, I don't know how, and then you procrastinate, and nothing ever materializes. You don't take any steps to accomplish that goal. And just in general. And I think my inspiration to write this book in this format, which is empowerment first, and then the whole concept of, the guidance of starting a business and all that. And then the last part of it is encouraging you to learn to play chess. I think, chess has changed my life. It's helped me to, and I know for a fact that it has helped me to become a better problem solver. And my self-confidence has increased tremendously in a good way, in a humble way. And I want to share that knowledge and experience with others, especially women.
Thank you, Wendy, for that response. Now, also, what I wanted to do as well is to, I know in your book you said that external obstacles and internal resistance both exist to prevent you directly and indirectly from setting or accomplishing your goals. Sometimes these opponents mask themselves as allies. Can you elaborate on that quote?
Well, allies being friends, not foes, right? So sometimes you can have a best friend, for example, who says, oh, I'm so happy for you. Wow, you started your business. But sometimes these could be invalidators, people that they talk about you behind your back. And, they do something that interrupts your flow or that goal, whatever it is that you're trying to accomplish. But that person is there to, whether directly or indirectly, they're doing something that is intercepting your goal for success. And that's something you have to be vigilant about, It could be a family member, someone who has absolutely no hope in you, offers no support, no love. And all they say, you'll never amount to anything, you can never do anything. But allies are supposed to be supportive members, right? They're supposed to be something positive in our lives, but sometimes they can also intercede. And that's something that you have to be, vigilant about. You have to be awake. Pay attention to everything that's going on around you, because the more, like when you're playing chess, you have to stay vigilant. What is my opponent's next move? You have to anticipate that. And when that person makes a move, you have to have a planned response. And so on and so forth. You move, I move in response thereto. And then you move in response to my response or my move. And that's, it's an endless game. But allies can also be foes. So be vigilant. Stay vigilant.
That's true.
Stay vigilant.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. Thank you, Wendy, for that response. Also, now my stance on this question is to know the Bible for yourself. The Bible is God's principles to live by. When we encounter opposition and deal with opponents masking themselves as allies, we need to know from a spiritual standpoint, according to Ephesians 6:12, for we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. And also in Ephesians 5:11, it says, have nothing to do with the fruitless deeds of darkness, but rather expose them. And I mentioned those two scriptures because when you're dealing with opposition, a lot of times people look at the person, but really the person, there's something else going on behind the scenes. It's not just a person. So you have to know how to deal with it, because there's something spiritual going on, and we don't wrestle against flesh and blood, meaning looking at that person as something else spiritually that's causing the opposition, and that person is just being used as a tool to stop you or to put a stumbling block, I guess what I want to say, in your way. Now, also, I mentioned Ephesians 5:11 is because it says don't participate in the fruitless deeds of darkness, which that would be darkness, but it says rather expose them. That's when you have to confront what's causing the opposition, or if somebody you think is putting a stumbling block in your way. It may not be what you think, but you do need to expose it to find out what it is, because sometimes sometimes things are not always as they appear, but if you expose it, then you can get to the root of what the opposition is. So I mentioned those two because you have to do two things. You got to recognize that it's a spiritual thing, and then also you need to expose it, because if it's something that's truly an opposition, you need to expose it so you can deal with it. One of the things I also want to say as well, when you tackle your opposition from a spiritual perspective and pray about it, God will direct you on how to handle your problem. Also, Wendy, in your book, Checkmate Moves for Business Startups, you also said on page 47, you say your thoughts and your opinions matter. You do a disservice to your integrity and well-being if you stay quiet, hold in your feelings, and do not speak your mind when something is wrong or being unfairly done to you. Can you elaborate on that quote?
Well, basically, if you feel something doesn't feel right, you feel something doesn't feel right, but yet you're not going forward anyway. When you decide, you do a disservice to yourself by not standing up for yourself. And there's ways to do that. I'm not talking about shouting and cursing and getting crazy, but diplomatically and firmly with confidence to say, hey, what you're doing is unacceptable to me. But before you can even do that, you need to know what your boundaries are, your limitations. If you don't know who you are, if you don't understand yourself, then people are going to walk all over you, and that's a fact. If you're docile, if you're too shy, okay. But there's got to be a point in time where something's being done to you, and that self, like I say there, and that continued in that chapter, this self-defeating passiveness needs to change. You need to stop being afraid of making decisions and start making smarter moves to improve that. When I say become assertive, it's not, being a nasty human being. I'm saying, hey, excuse me, I want to be clear about this boundary right now that you're crossing, and that's unacceptable to me, and I'm going to tell you why. Or you can ask, like you said. If you want to ask questions, okay, that's fine. But at the end of the day, you do a disservice because you're not allowing yourself to grow personally and intellectually, because emotional intelligence is critical for our successes each and every time. And emotional intelligence involves thinking, planning, and reacting to things with logical clarity. And I'll go back to recommending women start playing chess for fun, because that will help you.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you, Wendy. I also want to mention just to our audience, just in case we go off the air, you can always get the podcast later. I know we're kind of running out of time, but I wanted to make sure that I get the information from Wendy, because she has a lot of valuable information here. Now, also, Wendy, on my response to that question as well, is that I also want to add that, and this is just a different perspective because I didn't see this on the other end of the spectrum in your book, but I also wanted to add that when we think something has been done unfairly to us, we must first do self-examination. We must first make sure we did not do anything to warrant this unfair treatment. Sometimes it could be a matter of reaping what we have sown, especially in the corporate world where it is cutthroat. Make sure you haven't done things unfairly to others or to other people, and now you are receiving unfair treatment. Always do a self-examination first. God could be dealing with you, and you need to repent and get things right with the people that you have mistreated. After you examine yourself and you do not find anything to warrant the mistreatment that you're receiving, then you can proceed to fighting any injustice you feel was done to you. So I always recommend to do self-examination first, before you feel that you're being mistreated, because it could be something maybe you have done to someone and you're just receiving back what you put out there in the universe.
Absolutely.
Also,
that's
I mean, I always start with self. That's something that's a rule of thumb for me, that I always start with self. And then when I examine myself and I don't find that I have done anything and I pray about it, then I'm being mistreated fairly, or this person is doing something to me.
Right.
Question that I want to go to. Go ahead, Wendy. Go ahead.
I agree with you. I just think it's relative to the circumstance, the situation, the issue at hand. I really believe that you could be the kindest, most humble person on earth, and there'll always be those that will walk all over you if you let them. At the end of the day, even if you're doing your best, even if you're just being a great person and being helpful and thoughtful. And there's always that element of change that occurs, that the one individual, because there's always one, right? There's always one that doesn't appreciate you and doesn't respect you in some form or another. And that's something that we just have to be vigilant about. And again, to piggyback what you said, we have to know who we are. There has to be self-awareness, self-acceptance, self-improvement, and positive self-talk in order for us to even get to that point. And that's a hard task to accomplish for most people. Unfortunately.
And I do, and I agree with you, Wendy, on that. I totally agree with you. I know that we're running out of time at this point, but I also wanted to mention before we go off the air, I wanted to mention my book, How Did I Get Into This Mess? You Compromise, Says the Lord. It is a nonfiction book I published to help others to make better choices in life. I share my experiences, testimonies, victories, and defeats. I also show how God takes our defeats and turns them around so we can still get to the destiny he originally planned for our lives. Now, also, Wendy, I want you to give your contact information for those who would like to get in contact with you to ask you more about your book and your services.
Yes, they can jump on my website, SHESSglobal.com, and that is spelled SHESS global.com.
Okay, thank you, Wendy, for that response. I also want to let you know that our show has now come to a close. I hope you enjoyed the show and gained knowledge while listening to Checkmate Moves for Business Startups. Continue to check www.blogtalkradio.com/ASWIFTT for upcoming shows, or you can email us direct at aswiftradionews@yahoo.com to give us your feedback on the show. Thank you again for tuning in and listening, and always remember Psalms 119:105, thy word is a lamp unto my feet and a light unto my path. This is Brenda Diann Johnson here on ASWIFTT Radio.